Hello everyone, welcome to this video on HTML image slider by Simplilearn. In this video, we learn how you can create a beautiful HTML slider by using just HTML and CSS and a little bit of JavaScript. So, without further delaying our time, let's get started. Our image slider will look something like this. We have the background image and these images that I have taken for example purpose. We have these radio buttons, and we click on the radio buttons. We can go through our images one by one. Also, the images will change automatically after some time, as you can see. So, let's see how we can create this image slider. So, here on the desktop, I have created one file where I have the required images and an HTML and CSS file. So first, in the HTML file, let's add our radio buttons. So we'll create one div and name it a div class slider. Inside this div, I'll create another div which will be named as div class slides. Inside this div class slides, we'll add the radio buttons. So input, the input type will be radio, and let's give this name radio button, and we'll tag them with ID radio 1. So as you can see, we'll need 4 buttons here, so we'll add 4 radio buttons here. So just copy paste this 4 times. Here, change the ID to radio 2, radio 3 and radio 4. So we can distinguish between the 4 radio buttons. So after the creating of radio buttons, we'll add our required images. So we'll create another div and name it class slide first. Inside this div, I'll create an image tag and specify the path of the image. In a similar manner, we'll create 4 div tags for 4 images. So just we'll do it swiftly. Another div with class name slide. Inside this image 2.jpg. So just save the file and let's recheck our code. We have the radio buttons, we have the images. So let's just go back to our file and see how it looks. So if we refresh, we'll see we have the 4 radio buttons here and some distorted images. So let's just fix these images in the CSS. So inside our CSS file, we'll add the body and we'll set the margin to 0 pixels, padding to 0, We'll set the height to say 100 vertical height. We'll set the display to flex. We'll justify the content to center. We'll set the align items to center. And we'll set the background to black. So just refresh this file. So we still need to fix these images. So just set the slider width to 800 pixels. Okay, there's an error. We'll set this width, not windows. We'll set the height to 500 pixels. We'll set the border radius to 10 pixels. And overflow we'll keep as hidden. For the slides part, we'll set the width to 500%, height to 500 pixels, and display to flex. So let's save the file and see how it looks on the page. So yeah, you can see the image is now in a proper size. We have to fix this radio button. We have the background black. So let's fix these things. So for the slides input. Okay, before styling this, let's add some more HTML content here. So after adding on the image, we have to create the automatic navigation button and the manual navigation button. So after this div, add another div, the class name navigation auto, let's say. And inside this navigation auto, we'll add div class auto button 1. We need the 4 buttons, so we'll copy it 4 times. And this will be my button 2, this will be button 3, and this will be button 4. Outside this div, we'll create another div which will be for the manual navigation button. So we'll name this navigation. Make sure you spell it right. Navigation manual. And inside this div, we'll add our radio buttons, which will be manual. We'll name it class manual button, MAN. We need the 4 buttons, so we'll copy it 4 times. We'll change the label to radio 2, radio 3 and radio 4. So I think this will work enough. So here we have the navigation. Okay, we have a spelling mistake here. Div class and navigation manual. Just a class here. So let's recheck our code. It's a good practice to recheck your code so that you don't encounter any error. So okay, we have a div class slider here. And inside our div class slider, we have the 4 radio buttons, radio 1, 2, 3, 4. We have added our images inside the div tags with the name slide. Okay, we have created a navigation auto with the 4 buttons and navigation manual with the 4 buttons. Okay, so let's save the file and go back and refresh it to see how it looks. Okay, we have to add some CSS here. So inside the slides input, we'll set the display to none. For the dot slide, we'll set the width to 20%. And we'll set the transition to 2 seconds. Now we'll add a style for image. We'll set the width to 800 pixels and we'll set the height to say 500 pixels. Okay. Let's save the file and let's go back to see how it looks right now. Okay, so you can see the images are properly aligned here. We have to style our radio buttons for here. So let's go back to our CSS. Now the code we are going to write here will be for the manual slide navigation. So just add here comment manual slide navigation. So just repeat so that we will remember the code. So we'll add the first class navigation manual. We'll set the position to absolute. We'll set the width to 800 pixels. We'll not have the height here, we'll set the margin. So the margin top will be minus 40 pixels. And display will keep it as flex. And the justify content will be center. So let's just save and go back to the page to see how it looks right now. Okay, the images are in the center. You can see. Now we cannot see our radio buttons just as now. We have to add some color to it so that the radio buttons will be visible. So we'll go back to our CSS. We'll add the manual button. We'll set the border to say 3 pixels, solid and red. You can take any color you want. We'll set the padding to 5 pixels. We'll set the border radius to say 9 pixels. We set the cursor to pointer so that when you hover over buttons, the cursor will look as a pointer. And we'll set the transition to 1 second. Save, go back and refresh. So now you can see the buttons are here, not properly spaced, but yeah, they're here. So let's add the spacing and everything else. So we'll set the manual button. We'll set the margin right to 40 pixels. Now it's time to add the hover effect. So for the manual button, the hover will be say background, the color blue. So just save the file and go back and refresh. Yeah, so you can see our manual buttons are in place. When you hover over it, you can see the blue effect, and when you click, nothing happens right now because we don't have any JavaScript to respond to this radio button. We'll add them in the end. First, let's design these buttons. So this was for the manual button. Now we'll add one code which will be used when you want to select the radio button by default. So let's understand how those radio buttons work in this file. So the radio buttons will be used where 2 or more options are identified which are mutually exclusive and the user has to choose exactly one choice. In other words, clicking on a non-selected radio button will erase any other button that was selected on the list previously. Radio buttons include lower cognitive load as they permanently keep all the options visible such that users can easily analyze them. Radio buttons are also simpler to use for users who have difficulty in making effective mouse movements. So we'll add hash radio dot check. So the sign that we have added here is more a sibling combinator. It combines 2 sequences of simple selectors having the same parent, and the second must come immediately after the first. So we'll add dot first, and for this we'll set the margin left to 0. Okay, so this will be radio 1. The label that we have added in our manual buttons. We'll need 4 such buttons, so we'll copy this 4 times. 1, 2, 3 and 4. This will be my for radio button 2, and we'll set the margin left here to minus 20 pixels. For radio button 3, we'll set it to say minus 40 pixels. Don't forget to add pixels here. And for the last button, we'll set it to minus 60 pixels. So all this code was for the manual navigation button. Now let's design for automatic navigation button. So we'll open .navigation. We'll set the position to absolute. We'll set the display to flex. We'll set the width to 800 pixels. We'll justify the content to the center, and we'll set the margin top to say 460 pixels or 450 pixels. Let's set 460 pixels. Now, so I'll add the style to navigation auto div. So navigation auto div. We'll set the border to same border that we have used here. It will be 3 pixels solid red. Make sure you keep this 3 pixels solid red in both the navigation auto and navigation manual, because if you change the color here, you will see the 2 manual buttons there. So for just example, let's change this to green. So when you save and go back and refresh, you can see the 2 buttons here. This is green and this is red. So if there are 2 colors, both the buttons will overlap and not look good. So we'll just keep it here red. We'll set the padding to 5 pixels. And we'll set the border radius to 9 pixels. And we'll set the transition to 1 second. Now same code as here, which I added for checking of the radio buttons. So we'll just copy this whole code and paste it here. We'll have to tweak some things here. So the class was navigation.auto. So we'll add here navigation auto dot auto button 1. We'll set here some background. So we'll delete this code. Background, let's say any color, pink. So copy this code, Control C, delete this whole thing, Control V, and just change the radio buttons here. This will be radio button 2. This will be 3. And this will be 4. Now we have all the designing in place. Let's go back to the code and refresh. So now you see everything is in place. The background is black, the image is perfectly aligned. We have this button, so let's click. So when you click, you see the image slides. This is the 4th image, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. So your beautiful image slider is ready. All that now is left is to add the JavaScript code for this image slider to function in an automatic manner. So now we'll go back to this HTML5. And below this div tag, we'll open one script tag. And inside this script tag, we'll create one variable named counter. We'll set it to 1. We create one function, set interval. So what this part specifically does is we have created one variable named counter, and it will check against the ID that we have created as radio. When the radio button is checked and it encounters, the counter will be plus plus, that counter will increase by 1. So after the counter has reached a 4, so it will get back to the starting point, that is 1. So the whole point of this code is to make the images slide in a loop. So just save and go back. Now when you refresh, you will see the images will move after some time. Specifically 2 seconds. Now when the images reach the last stage, it goes back to the first. You can also change it by clicking here manually. So this is all for this tutorial. I hope you have liked this video. If yes, please like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you and happy learning.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.